There's a guy that's potentially on the trading block. More rumors continue to circulate today and in the last couple days. I don't think he has any shot of coming to the Kings, but I disagree with Scott Perry. I disagree with my man Scott Perry, another great Monday motivator, but I disagree with him. I think the Kings should make a move for Trey Young. I think they should go after Trey Young. It sounds like he might be available. From the things I think maybe you heard the same things. You can
Mm-hmm.
elaborate on it. He was available this summer if they really wanted him, and the Kings weren't interested. I think they should be. What do you think about Trey Young and the Kings potentially pursuing Trey Young?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to. But like again, this offseason, everything I had heard that they had an opportunity and they said no. And the biggest issue they had is that they knew that the second that he landed in Sacramento, he wanted to void the final year of his deal for next year and get a new contract. And that contract would be based on raises off of that contract. So we're talking about the 5-year, $300 million contract. And I think that they weren't fully on board for that kind of money for a player that they don't know if he impacts winning in the way that a player that makes that much money should be, right? And I think that, like, look, at the end of the day, you don't have anything set up at your point guard position for years. Like Dennis Schroeder is probably better served as a backup and also has trade value. Russell Westbrook keeps putting up numbers, but he's 37. You need someone that you can build an identity around, which was De'Aaron Fox, right? And so, do I personally love Trey Young as a player. I think he's a sieve on defense. Horrible defensively. He's also a very inefficient scorer, which doesn't make any sense to me because that's not who it looked like he was going to be as a player. It looked like he'd be a high volume scorer, but it wouldn't be so inefficient, like less than 40% a couple of years in his career. The 3-point shooting isn't always there, but outstanding passer. And like, if I could make a move right now for one thing that the Kings need outside of like length and athleticism, we talk about all the time, I can't stand watching bad basketball. I want to see a player that moves the ball, that can average 11 assists a game. Like Trey Young brings a lot to the table. And I am so over just like you're trying to develop young players. You don't develop young players by just putting them on the court and have them go stand in the corner. They have to actually be part of the game plan. And some nights they're part of the game plan and the team actually looks fun and has a good time and they have a shot to win games. But then there are these other games like yesterday where it's like, what are you doing here? Like, what exactly is the game plan coming into here? Because whatever it was, you're not playing to the game plan. You're not playing to any strengths at all. And you're just getting clubbed. And so for me, would I take a chance on Trey? I probably would. Because I mean, again, it's going to be the same basic contract as like a Zach LaVine. And we're hearing, again, that Atlanta is very interested in Anthony Davis and would like to make a move for Anthony Davis, but Dallas has really no interest in Trey Young. And so how do you make that move without including Trey Young? And there's talk that, they may be willing to move off of Sachet, and they might have Porzingis who, may or not be able to play. He's in the same boat as Anthony Davis as far as games played. And so maybe you can cobble together a trade. I think there could be a 3-team trade that would make sense between the three of them, where somebody gets a young player and a Zach LaVine, and the Kings get a Trey Young, and Atlanta gets Anthony Davis. I just don't know that they're actually going to push the button. And again, Scott Perry's clearly looking for a point guard. We've heard the rumors about LaMelo Ball in the past, about potentially John Morant, and who's the other one for Cleveland?
Oh, Darius Garland.
Darius Garland. Would the Kings be interested? The Kings are going to be interested in everybody because they're not good enough, and they're trying to move off of these contracts. And none of these contracts, outside of Keegan Murray's extension and the 3 young guys that they have on the roster right now, everybody else is somebody else's, sign or trade that you're dealing with. And so for me, I see Scott Perry willing to flush most of this roster in order to try something new and have it be his team and not someone else's. And again, you can list all of the attributes that Trey Young has. The problem is they don't fit into the attributes that Scott Perry's looking for. We always hear this defensive minded, gritty, physical, like all that stuff. That's not who Trey Young is. He's a very good player, but he's not that. So I like him more than some of the other point guards. I think he's a better player than some of the other point guards that they're kicking the tires on or hope that become available. But at the same time, like I would at least try something in that situation and see if you could, bring him into the fold and have it work out. I just don't know that it will.
Yeah, I agree with the principles that Scott Perry comes to the table with for building this roster and what he wants to see. I just don't think it's realistic that you're going to get 12 guys like that. Like you can, in reality, not all 12 guys on the roster or 15 guys are going to have the grit, the determination. Like there's going to be some guys that have more talent that you might sacrifice one or two of your principles because they're unbelievably talented. That's when you put the other 11 guys around him so that his shortcomings don't stick out like a sore thumb or don't hurt you. And I think with a guy like Trey Young, that's something that you can do. I agree. Like, just not a good defender, not an engaged defender a lot of times. But if you put another 3 or 4 guys in the lineup around him, like to a certain degree, you can hide him. That's what all these teams be doing. That's what they do with Ja. That's what they do with Trae when he's in Atlanta and they were winning games. That's what they did with Dame Lillard a lot of the times. They just hide him, put him on a guy that's in the corner, and let him float around and do what he does on the offensive end. And if you put the right pieces around a guy like Trey Young, I think you can survive his shortcomings while benefiting from his positives. But like you said, I don't feel like Scott Perry thinks this is the time to take that type of risk with that type of player.
Yeah, and I'd add this too. I think there's some you're right there. The problem is that the Kings are a team filled with star level players that have that but that's the problem. They have too many of the guys that you have to hide their deficiencies that are your star level players. So if you start having a group that has a Trey Young and you're in the same boat as when you have Zach LaVine, because you can't hide all the things that Zach doesn't do. And the Domantas Sabonis situation, like, hey, I will sit here and tell you a million times over that I think Domantas is one of the top 25 players in the league, and he's the best rebounder in the league, and that he plays like through pain and everything else. Like this season, notwithstanding, he's missed a bunch of games. But
we'll talk about that a little while.
I
think that happened when we were away. Like,
yeah,
he'll be gone for another month.
Another month. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's weird because he still hasn't had surgery. And that's just a strange, I don't know what's happening. And to me, I think we're in a season where it doesn't really matter what's happening. That's where we're at. But I would say the problem that, we were getting ready for Saturday's game, and I had a conversation with someone. I'm not going to name names, but I had a conversation with somebody who was like, hey, your guy, Keon Ellis, is finally getting to start tonight. And it's like, okay. And it's like, oh, he's so overblown by the fan base and, everyone loves him. Like he's perfectly fine NBA player, but at the same time, like really, what are we fighting over here? And I'm like, well, my problem isn't that Keon Ellis is good or bad. It's that players like Keon Ellis have to have good players around them to do exactly what you're saying, to draw the attention to like Keon Ellis. There should be a moment where Keon Ellis can have games like he had 5 of 10 from 3. He's an incredible shooter. He has proven that throughout his career. He's a top 15, 20 shooter in the league. Like, look at his career stats. He's like a career 43% 3-point shooter. But when your star players aren't doing what they're supposed to do to create the vortex of, dragging everyone to the middle of the key so you have wide open shooters everywhere, when they don't have that capability and they're not playing up to their potential, it makes guys like Keon, guys like Neat Clifford, guys like Keegan Murray look even worse because like they're just being guarded straight up or they're getting switched onto with the best defender on the team. Like there are things that happen when your best players aren't playing well enough that cause your role players to look even more like role players. And that's one of the biggest problems the Kings have. And it's again why one night they have 32 assists, another night they have 18, 19. Like there's not a consistency with the star level players to make the role players fit into what you're trying to accomplish. And it's really difficult. That's why guys like Precious Achua and Dylan Cardwell, they just stand out so much. Every minute they're on the court, they're playing so much harder and so much more physical than everybody else. And you're like, why isn't everybody doing what they're doing? And it's like, well, because you're right. That's not how an NBA team is built. There are a bunch of players who don't do the physical stuff. I remember Jamal Crawford signed with Portland Trailblazer and said in the press conference, I think it was Nate McMillan said, oh, yeah, I'll even get him to play defense up here. And Jamal's like, yeah, bro, I don't do that. Yeah, that ain't me. That's not who you just signed. That ain't me. And it's understood that certain players have certain roles. Malik Monk is to bring energy, to bring fire, to fly all over the court, to make mistakes. For every Malik Monk, you need two guys who don't make mistakes, who don't fly all over the court, and who play defense. And that's just the way you have to design your team. And the Kings, like just the mix of players, but it's also the types of players and who's playing well and who's not. It's not conducive to winning basketball at all right now. And that's tough.
And I'll also, I'll throw the cape on for a guy like DeMar DeRozan too. DeMar DeRozan, 36 years old. Like he's not supposed to be. I wouldn't have DeMar DeRozan on my team thinking, yeah, we need you to fly around and be this super leader. Like, no, you're like the super OG. Get you the ball. You got at this point in your career, you got one job, and that's to be this offensive guy. You're not a defensive guy. You're not this hustle guy. This isn't Toronto DeMar DeRozan where you can go flying around and doing a bunch of things. You got a more of a floor-based game, offensively and defensively now. And to have him as like, no, that's your best player. Like he should be leading things. That's a maybe I'm stalling him out and giving him a pass, but that's not a DeMar DeRozan problem. That's a you problem. Why are you putting him in that situation at 36 years old? Like that's not what he should be doing right now. He should literally be, hey, just shoot, just do what you do, OG. But the roster was like, I look at Zach LaVine more of that type of player. Like he's 29, 30. Like, yeah, be the leader. Be a guy that, lifts everybody around you and moves the ball and doing all that. You're in the prime of your athletic career right now. Like, yes, do that. And he's incapable of it. I don't look at DeMar DeRozan like, yeah, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. You're about to retire. What do you mean you're not supposed to do what you're supposed to do?
Well, I think there are certain games where, yeah, it all works and DeMar like is either on fire and you just keep feeding him, or the game the other night where he had 9 assists, right? Where you're like, all right, that's what at this stage, like he should be trying to help the younger players develop like everybody else is. But then you get to games like yesterday where it just felt so forced from him and Russ. And I know, again, DeMar's playing in his hometown. Russ is playing in his hometown. Russ played for that team, and like I there was some disrespect there, like the way that things went. And so I get this like want to go out and beat those guys. I really enjoyed watching Dennis Schroeder just chirp at Luka Doncic the whole game.
Said he was going to beat his ass.
I loved it. I absolutely loved the whole thing. And like keeping someone in check is fine, but keeping someone in check while playing a team style of basketball where you have some potential to succeed. Like the only way to succeed is not for DeMar DeRozan to take 20 shots and score 30 points, because if that's like the pathway, you're going to lose the game, because those 20 shots, when you're only getting up 70 or 80 and you're not getting enough of everyone else contributing, isn't good for what's happening. And it's, for me, if he's getting the ball with 8 seconds left on the shot clock and making his move and getting either the foul or the jumper to fall or the foul and the jumper to fall, that's fine. But there are way too many times, man, where I'm watching, these guys get the ball and it's him and Russ. And there's 18, 19 seconds on the shot clock and the ball's not moving again. And it just feels like there's certain games where that just like all the passing goes out the window and it just becomes ISO ball, ISO ball, ISO ball. And I get it. That's who those guys are as players, but there's also a way to play ISO ball within the flow of a game. And when the game stops playing and it's just ISO ball, it's just not fun to watch. And there's no way to compete because while you're playing ISO ball, the other team is typically hitting 7 3-point shots more than you are. And you can't make up for those 21 points that you're losing right there. And you're not going to get the foul calls that the Lakers get, which is just a joke. I mean, they're like plus 450 over the last 5 years over their opponent in free throw attempts. And you're just like shaking your head. I mean, watching Luka cry